you're eating cereal. Standing in the kitchen of a rental apartment in Tucson, Arizona, scrolling through your phone with one hand, spooning Lucky Charms with the other. It's 7:14 in the morning. You haven't slept well in months, but today feels almost normal, almost quiet. Then your phone buzzes, a news alert from an app you forgot you installed. You glance at it. Your face is staring back at you, not a bad photo either. They used your driver's license picture from 2019, the one where you thought you looked decent. Now it's pinned to the top of the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. Your full legal name, your date of birth, your height, weight, a scar on your left forearm you forgot you even had. A reward of $250,000 for information leading to your capture. The cereal hits the floor. You don't hear it. There's a moment, maybe 2 seconds, where your brain simply refuses to process what's happening. You knew they were looking. You've known for over a year. But this is different. This isn't a regional warrant or a detective leaving voicemails. This is the list. The one reserved for people the federal government wants to find more than almost anyone else on Earth. There are only 10 spots. You're now occupying one of them. And every person in this country with a phone just got access to your face. You need to move. Not tomorrow, not tonight, now. But where? That's the question that's been rotting in the back of your skull for 14 months, and you still don't have a good answer. You've been drifting west, staying in short-term rentals paid through a prepaid card loaded with cash you earned doing construction under a name that belongs to a dead man from Nevada. It worked. For a while, it worked beautifully. Nobody questioned you. Nobody looked twice. You were just another guy with calloused hands and a sunburn who showed up, swung a hammer, collected payment, and disappeared. But that infrastructure collapses the moment your face becomes the most circulated image in federal law enforcement. Let's rewind. Because you didn't end up on this list by accident. 18 months ago, you were living in Virginia, a suburb outside Richmond. Normal job, normal apartment, a girlfriend who was starting to talk about moving in together. You had a life that looked like a life. But underneath, it was something else. A debt that had metastasized beyond anything you could service legally. Not gambling, not drugs. Something quieter. You'd been funneling money from your employer for 3 years, small amounts at first, then larger, then amounts that required creative accounting that you were running out of creativity to sustain. When the auditors came, you had 11 days warning. 11 days to decide what kind of person you were going to become. You chose to run. But running required capital, and capital required one final act that you told yourself you'd never commit. The man's name was Gerald Keene, 63 years old, a private currency dealer who operated out of his home in Fairfax County. You'd met him twice through legitimate transactions. You knew he kept significant cash reserves in a floor safe. You knew he lived alone. You knew his security system was outdated. What you didn't know was that Gerald Keene kept a shotgun behind his bedroom door and had the reflexes of a man 30 years younger. You broke in at 2 a.m. He confronted you on the stairs. What happened next took 9 seconds. You don't remember all of them. You remember the sound, though. You remember the way silence returned to the house afterward, heavier than before, like the air itself had changed composition. Gerald Keene died on his staircase. You left with $340,000 in mixed currency and a stain on your hands that no amount of distance would wash off. If you had been in that house, standing over that man's body, what would you have done next? Run as you did? Or called 911 and accepted what was coming? The first 6 months were almost easy. You crossed into Tennessee, then Arkansas, then New Mexico. Changed vehicles 3 times, always private sales, always cash. You altered your appearance gradually, not dramatically. Shaved the beard you'd had for years. Lost 20 pounds. Started wearing glasses you didn't need. The key to disappearing isn't transformation. It's subtlety. You become a slightly different version of yourself. Someone who wouldn't trigger recognition in a stranger, but might confuse a facial recognition algorithm just enough to buy time. You learned the rules of invisibility through trial and error. Never stay anywhere longer than 5 weeks. Never form relationships deeper than a first name. Never use the same grocery store twice in a row. Never look directly at a security camera, which means never looking up, which means living your life staring at the ground. The FBI assigned your case to a senior agent out of the Washington field office. You don't know her name yet, but she knows everything about you. She's interviewed your girlfriend who cooperated immediately and completely. She's pulled your financial records, your travel history, and your internet search history from the last 5 years. She knows what podcasts you listen to. She knows what books you ordered. She built a psychological profile that predicts your behavior with disturbing accuracy. She predicted you'd go west. She predicted you'd seek manual labor. She predicted you'd avoid major cities but stay near them, close enough for supplies but far enough for anonymity. She was right about all of it. The investigation accelerated when DNA evidence from Gerald Keene's house came back definitively matched to you. That's when the charge was upgraded from suspicion to certainty. First-degree murder. Federal flight to avoid prosecution. The U.S. Marshal Service joined the hunt. Then the case crossed a threshold that very few cases reach, and the FBI added your name to the list. Now you're standing in a kitchen in Tucson with cereal on the floor and your face on every law enforcement bulletin board in North America. You pack in 4 minutes. Everything fits in one duffel bag. You've kept your life portable for exactly this reason. The rental is paid through next week, which means the landlord won't check on it for days. You leave through the back entrance, across a vacant lot and into a neighborhood where your truck is parked 3 streets away, a precaution that now feels prescient. You drive north. Not because the north is safe, but because the south means the border, and the border means checkpoints, cameras, biometric scanners, and cooperation agreements between governments that would make crossing a death sentence. North means open space. Small towns, places where cell coverage drops and surveillance thins. But the rules have changed. Before today, you were a fugitive that most people wouldn't recognize. Now you're a face that every gas station attendant, every motel clerk, every bored retiree watching the evening news might identify. The $250,000 reward turns every human being in your proximity into a potential threat. Not because they're malicious, but because $250,000 changes the calculus of loyalty for almost anyone. You stop for gas in a town called Safford. Population, 12,000. You pay at the pump, hat low, sunglasses on, and notice the attendant inside watching you through the window. Probably nothing. Probably just a guy looking outside because there's nothing else to look at. But your nervous system doesn't process probability anymore. It processes a threat. And every pair of eyes is a threat now. 3 days later, you're in southern Utah. Red Rock Country. A landscape so vast and empty it feels like the surface of another planet. You're sleeping in your truck at trailheads, eating cold cans of beans, rationing water. The $340,000 is down to $94,000 after 14 months of living. Money that you killed a man for is evaporating into gas and rent and prepaid cards and the slow tax of survival. You think about Gerald Keene every night. Not because you feel guilt in the way people describe guilt, as a heavy conscience or sleepless torment. It's more mechanical than that. You simply cannot stop replaying the 9 seconds. Your brain cycles through them involuntarily, like a scratched record. The stairs, the sound, the silence after. Sometimes you try to construct an alternate version where he doesn't come out of the bedroom, where you take the money and leave and nobody dies. That version feels so close to possible that it's almost worse than what actually happened. The senior agent, whose name is Rowan, you'll learn later, is in Tucson now. Standing in the kitchen you left 4 days ago. She finds a single fingerprint on the refrigerator handle that confirms you were here. She notes the Lucky Charms box on the counter, the spilled cereal on the tile, which you never cleaned up. She looks at these details the way a hunter reads tracks. Not just where you were, but your state of mind. Rushed exit. Panic response. Disorganized departure. She tells her team you're unraveling. She's right. On the 7th day, you see your face on a television in a laundromat in Moab through the window while walking past. You keep walking. Your pace doesn't change. But something inside you shifts permanently. A resignation that doesn't feel like surrender but feels adjacent to it. The understanding, cold and complete, that this is not a problem you can outrun. The list doesn't expire. The reward doesn't decrease. The satellites don't stop orbiting. The algorithms don't forget. You have $94,000, a truck with 230,000 miles on it, and a face that a nation has been asked to memorize. You keep driving because stopping means deciding, and deciding means confronting a future that only has 2 doors. Behind one is a concrete cell for the rest of your natural life. Behind the other is something you swore you'd never consider but have started measuring in practical terms. Logistics, location, timing. The desert stretches ahead of you, indifferent and enormous. The sun is setting. The sky is the color of a bruise. Your phone, the burner, sits on the passenger seat. You could call someone. You have no one to call. You could turn yourself in. You could drive until the gas runs out and let the landscape decide. You do none of these things. You just drive. Hands at 10 and 2. Eyes on a road that leads to nowhere you want to arrive. Somewhere behind you, Agent Rowan opens her laptop and updates her file. Last confirmed sighting 4 days prior. Direction of travel, likely north. In a psychological assessment, the subject is deteriorating. Capture probability within 90 days is high. She closes the laptop. She'll find you. She knows it. Somewhere beneath the denial and the distance and the desert dust. You know it too. The list doesn't lose. It has never lost. And you're on it now.